Welcome to the Logan County History Center. We're located at 521 East Columbus Avenue in Bellefontaine. The History Center consists of 3 different buildings, all connected. We have the 1906 Orr Mansion that you see from the street. And attached to that is the Logan County Museum, which used to be the Latham Nursing Home. We've converted patient rooms into exhibit rooms. And then attached to that is the Logan County Transportation Museum, which we added in 2014. Again, they're all connected. History Center is open Wednesday through Sunday, 1 to 4. Our phone number is 937-593-7557. You can look at our website at loganhistory.org. We're in the Transportation Museum now. It's made to look like the roundhouse that used to be in Bellefontaine. Bellefontaine was a huge railroad town, but we also have other transportation history. So we have each bay represents different time in transportation here in Logan County. We do have a early transportation bay. It has a covered wagon that brought families here back in the 1840s. They originally came from Virginia, then to Southern Ohio, and then moved their way up here to Logan County. The wagon was restored by the Ben Logan FFA a number of years ago. We have it packed to look like a family may have had it packed on a trip to their new home. We also have a local carriage in the early transportation room. We had a number of different carriage factories. The one we have in there now was actually restored by the donor, and then later we had it restored by the local Amish carriage builder. And so it has several different local connections. But it is a nice way to see what transportation was like early on. We also have a railroad bay. As I mentioned, the railroad is very important to Logan County and Bellefontaine. The Big Four New York Central Roundhouse that was here was the largest roundhouse between New York and St. Louis on the Big Four. The railroad employed quite a few people in Logan County. Basically from after Civil War up through the 1950s into the 60s, it was one of the major employers and really a part of our culture here in Bellefontaine and Logan County. So we have a lot of neat artifacts in there that represents the railroad history. We also have the A.J. Miller room. The A.J. Miller Company started out in 1853 as a carriage builder. Then when the automobile came along, they started building automobiles, and they specialized in hearses and ambulances. What they did is they'd bring cars from other manufacturers, the wheel, basically the chassis of a car, and then the workers of the A.J. Miller Company converted into whichever kind of vehicle they needed, whether it's a hearse or ambulance, or in the case of what we have in the museum, it's both a hearse and an ambulance. But they also made flower cars and different things like that. What they called buses, they were just really big cars. Airports and even national parks purchased those to take people around. It was a major company that was located here in Bellefontaine. We also have our fire room. It has some fire equipment, including a ladder wagon that was built by the Miller brothers, which is the predecessor of the A.J. Miller Company. The ladder wagon was first used by the Bellefontaine Fire Department and then later used by the Zanesfield Fire Department. Zanesfield then donated to us. We also have a 1921 Model T fire truck that was used in West Liberty. It was probably used up until the 1950s. The person we got it from, Andy Detweiler, had restored it, and so it looks really nice. It actually still runs, but again, it's a museum piece, so we don't take it out. But it is a really neat representation of fire equipment in the first part of the 20th century. Along the walls, we have the different information about the varying fire departments in the county. They do play a very important role in our communities. We also have the modern transportation bay. It has a lot of the supply companies that supply Honda and other automobile manufacturers. Similar to the railroad, when Honda came, it became the big employer. And not only do you have Honda, but you do have all these different supply companies. So we have Beltec, AGC, a number of different places that, again, play an important part in our employment in Logan County, but also an important part in auto manufacturing in our country. A large part of the room talks about TRC, the Transportation Research Center in East Liberty. It was started in the early 1970s. It is the largest independent transportation research center in the world. you'll see a crash car. TRC crashed that just for us, for the museum. But they do a lot more than just crashing cars. They have a number of different tracks there that test how cars handle suspension, how they handle in the rain, different things like that. And now they're in the forefront of the smart technology. And so they just completed a new smart center there. And so they're working with transportation and using smart technology with that. We also have aviation history. Above, we have a airplane or biplane that was built by Clarence Whistler, who's a local man who's fascinated by aviation, totally self-taught. His dream was to have an airplane manufacturing company here in Logan County. That never quite happened, but he did build 2 different types of airplanes. Plus, he built a model or a kit. He bought a kit built of airplane. We have a model of that one also hanging here in the museum. He was a fascinating man. Not only was he in aviation, he had his own circus or traveling show that he took around. He was an escape artist, so he was a really interesting man. The biplane that is hanging was restored by several of our volunteers, about a 6-year project, but it turned out great. And then as we go into the connector of the Transportation Museum, we have Honda. Honda is a huge employer here in not just Logan County, but this area of Ohio. They first came to America back in the 1970s. They actually just celebrated their 40th anniversary this past year. Shouldn't say that. But then they started out in Marysville, Union County, with a motorcycle plant. Then in the early 80s, started also making cars. Then in 1989, they opened a plant here in Logan County, East Liberty. They also have an engine plant in Anna in Shelby County. So Bellefonte's kind of in the center of the corridor for Honda. But Honda is very generous, not only helping us build this Transportation Museum with donation of money, but also supplying exhibits for us to help tell their history. We do have a lot of Japanese culture because of Honda, and so we do have a wedding kimono that was given to us by one of the first families that came here from Honda, kind of as a thank you for the hospitality that they received. So again, even though Logan County is fairly small, we do really have a presence in the international world. It's kind of a neat story of how a small community like this can affect such a large place in the world. We're also known as the oldest, highest, shortest. We have the oldest concrete street, Court Avenue, which is south side of the courthouse. It was built in the early 1890s. George Bartholomew, who worked with concrete, came here and came up with a formula using marl from local marl pits near Rushsylvania as part of the ingredients for his concrete, but he came up with a formula that he thought would be strong enough to pave roads. And that time is for horse and buggies, and so he convinced the city to allow him to pave a section of Main Street, and if that held up, then they'd have him pave some other streets, and it did hold up. And then he completed Court Avenue was the first one he completed in concrete, and it still is there today. About 60% of it is still the original concrete. We also are the highest point in Ohio. Campbell Hill, just east of Bellefonte, is 1,549 feet above sea level. It's due because of it's not a mountain or anything, but because of the glaciers that came through many years ago, left deposits, and it just so happens that we are the highest point. We also have the shortest street in America, McKinley Street. It's on the west end of town. It's about 20 feet long. And so it's named after eventually President McKinley. At that time he was Governor McKinley, but it is an attraction that people do like to see and get their picture taken on the shortest street.
This is the part of the History Center that we call the Orr Mansion, but compared to large mansions in big cities, this is actually more of an upper middle class family home. And we're in the kitchen. Originally the kitchen was in the basement. The house was built in 1906 by William Orr, who was a lumber dealer, and having the kitchen in the basement at that time was a common thing. They had what they called a hand elevator or a dumbwaiter behind this wall, and that would bring the food up into this area, which was a warming room or butler's pantry type area. Over the years, there were several families that lived here, and in the 1950s, this was turned into the kitchen, and so we have it set up to look as a kitchen might have when the Orr family lived here. We have an oil-burning stove, and this is an ice box. The ice was a large chunk, which would have been put in this side, and you can see the ice tongs up on top. We also have a kitchen cupboard over here with a built-in flour sifter, and the top enamel top would pull out, so it could be used as a work surface. So these were common things that were used at the turn of the century in a kitchen. And this is the dining room. We know Mr. Orr liked to hunt, so the wallpaper in here has animals on it. And originally, though, above the wainscoting, there were mirrors. We do have a few things from the Orr family. The fish, hand-painted fish plates on the table were donated back to us from Mr. Orr's granddaughter who had them. And so we have a few pieces that actually belong to them. The light fixture is similar to what they may have had. It is not original to the house, but it is original to the period. And over here, we often show the pocket doors with the beveled glass in them. They could be closed to keep, you know, when they were entertaining, to keep the family separate from what was going on in the dining room. And this we call Mr. Orr's parlor, but it actually, you know, would have been like a sitting room. And we do have a picture of Mr. Orr on the mantle on his horse. And then there's also a picture of him with his pet bears. He brought 2 pet bears back from out west where he was a superintendent of a mine. And the family lived here until the early 1920s, but after 1911, Mr. Orr spent a lot of his time out west. The gun above the mantle was made by a local gunsmith named Hornback, and we do have several pieces of local firearms that were made by local gunsmiths here. As I mentioned, Mr. Orr liked to hunt, so we have a coyote over here and a deer, a mounted deer head, although they were not from his family. The crystal chandeliers that you'll notice in this part of the house were added in the 1950s by Nell Pickering. She loved this home and wanted to restore it, and she spent a lot of time and money stripping the paint. All of the fancy woodwork was painted by the time she got it, so she put a lot of effort in. And so in memory of her, we left the chandeliers, even though they're not accurate to the period that we're trying to show in this part of the house, which was when the Orr family lived here. And this is our front entryway. Again, we have one piece from the Orr family, which is this round table in the center. The fancy windows here around the door had to be remade, and also when we go upstairs, you'll see the stained glass window. Those unfortunately were taken while the home sat vacant between the time before the Historical Society got it. This we call Mrs. Orr's parlor. It has more of the fancy parlor type furniture that was popular at that time. The grand piano is from 1922. It was donated to us. It is a player or reproducing piano, and it does work. It's been all restored. So a lot of times at Christmas time we'll play that. And the picture on the mantle was one of Mr. Orr's daughters who lived here. He actually had 7 children, but we think only the 4 daughters lived here. And this is the music room. Some of the things we have in here, the little pump organ belonged to the Smith family orchestra. And the Smith family had 5 children, and plus the parents. They all played several different instruments and traveled around and presented at different programs around the county and even out of the county. And that would have been like in the 1920s and 30s. And we also have over here, the Dockenbach brothers played instruments, so we have their cornet and banjo over here, and a square grand piano. One of the things people usually notice is the hair wreath above the piano, and it was actually made by O.C. Piper Laufer. A lot of people ask about the door. It's a closet now, but originally it was a stairway that went down into the kitchen area so that the help didn't have to go through the dining room or the fancy rooms when they were going upstairs. And they did not have live-in help. A lot of people ask about maids. They had one, the Orr family had one lady who came and helped. And the youngest daughter said she was like a second mother to her, so she must have come and helped for a long time. And the Mills brothers, who were the singing Mills brothers, when they were young, they lived down around the corner, and they would come over and help from time to time too. The second floor is set up so that the rooms have different periods of furniture. Since most of the things that we have here in the way of furnishings were donated to us, they cover all different time periods. So the first room here, we call the rope bedroom because of the rope bed, but most of the things in here are the older pieces prior to like 1850, 60. There's a interesting sewing machine in the corner. It's very old, from the 1860s. And of course a spinning wheel and wash bowl set. Even though the Orr family did have bathrooms, this would have been like before that, they would have used the bowl and pitcher. The next room we have set up as a nursery, and the toys in here are from all different periods. There's a little day bed and the metal crib. The iron cribs were popular at that time. In the corner room we have set up, we call it Miss Green's room because Miss Mary Eloise Green donated almost all of the furnishings in here from her family. She lived over outside of East Liberty, and some of the things I usually point out are the wedding shoes that her father wore in 1897 with the long pointed toes, and her brother's East Liberty baseball uniform. Most of the towns around Logan County had their own little baseball teams, and this is the one he wore when he played for the East Liberty town team. So these things would be considered Victorian, kind of a late Victorian, and that's why the fancy wallpaper and a lot of elaborate carvings and things. The next room is Mr. Orr's office, and we do actually have Mr. Orr's desk in there. It's a large oak desk. And on it, again, we have a picture of him with his pet bears. And there's also a stock certificate from the Deer Creek Consolidated Mining Company, which was the company that he was superintendent of, but he also had a lot of investors from Logan County, and this stock certificate actually belonged to his daughter, Jenny. It would be his oldest daughter. The painting on the wall was done by Warren Cushman, who was a well-known Logan County artist, and it's of a hunting cabin in Georgia. He and the Green family, from the room next door, Miss Green's family, would often go down to this cabin. And this last bedroom has furnishings that were purchased at the World's Fair in Chicago in 1893, and it's called a sleigh bed. But the large wallpaper, flowers were popular at that time, and we believe that this room was like a master bedroom that the Mr. and Mrs. Orr used, and then off the door was a dressing room over there. Later, in the 1960s, when this was purchased by the Latham family, and they added a nursing home wing on the back, actually it was probably in the 70s that this room, after the Latham family moved out, a nurse lived here, and she had a little apartment here. This was her bedroom, and she had a little kitchen and bathroom back there. Each of the rooms up here, the remodeling was sponsored by different people to help us so that we could get it restored, because the building sat empty for many years and wasn't in too good a shape when the Historical Society bought it. And this is the stained glass window. It's a reproduction of the original. We have a picture of the original, and Vera Sickles redid that. She graduated from Bell Fountain High School, but later she redid this window for us. This is the ballroom. It was used for fancy dances and parties, and there was a lot of times a table set by each window, and then the double doors would open so that dancers could go out and get a breath of fresh air out on the upstairs third floor porch. But we use it as an exhibit area. It's been used for different things over the years. Currently, we have some of our textiles out here. We have a large collection of clothing, and a lot of times this is the only place where we can display them. So, but it's been used for many things over the years. We understand that there were a couple boys played basketball up here, and we know it was used for storage. And the last young lady that lived here had slumber parties up here. The chandelier that we have here actually came from Beatley's Hotel, which was up at the lake, a well-known resort. And I didn't point out the floors. Here and down in the dining room, you'll see parquet floors. Mr. Orr really liked the different woods. We know a lot of the woods in this house was brought from other places, shipped in. He actually, I guess, had a train car load of timber sent from out west where his mine was. And you'll see on your way down, you notice the American Legion symbols here on the newel post. The Legion owned this in the 1940s, late 40s and early 50s, and they used it, this room as a party room, and later they did add a Quonset building out back where the nursing home was later put.
The Logan County History Center we're very fortunate to have what we do have. We have the Orr Mansion, the Transportation Museum, and in between, the Logan County Museum. And so it used to be a nursing home, the Latham Nursing Home, back in from 1960s through the early 1980s. So we converted it into a museum. It allows us to have different themed exhibit rooms and different exhibits throughout. We do have a wall of famous Logan Countians. These are people that weren't necessarily born here, but spent time here. People like Blue Jacket, the famous Shawnee War Chief, Simon Kenton, frontiersman that lived his last 20-some years here or in this area near Zanesfield. Edward Jones, who founded an investment company, actually graduated from Bellefontaine High School. Walter Austin, who was a baseball, managed Brooklyn and later LA Dodgers and won the World Series, is in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Actually taught at Lewistown or Washington local schools. Back then, he was a minor leaguer and they didn't make much money and they had to have jobs in the off season, so he was a teacher and also a basketball coach there. And so he taught there for several years before he decided to give baseball one last chance, and worked out for him, not as a player, but as a manager. So a lot of different famous people here. If you go to our website, you can read more about some of those people. Perhaps the most famous are the Mills brothers. They were born in Piqua, Ohio, but moved here when they were in junior high age. And soon after they moved here, signed a record contract and a radio contract, and they started traveling all around performing. But this Bellefontaine remained their home base for many, many years. There were originally 4 brothers. The oldest passed away in 1936 of pneumonia. Then their father joined the group, and he continued singing in the 1960s. And then when he retired, the remaining 3 brothers sang until the early 80s. They were known for their harmony, but also for the ability to make instrument sounds with their voices. They could make harmonica sounds, trumpet sounds, different things, trombone, all different things. And again, they're just a wonderful singing group, and they're really the first Black or African American singing group to become popular with whites as well. So they have a very important part in the music history, not just of here in the United States, but in the world. And we do have a very large collection of Mills Brothers albums, and so they're still family members that live in this area. Their nephew was Gail Hamilton, was the first Black mayor of Bellefontaine. So again, they're still represented in this area. The museum hallways, we generally have exhibits up for the topic of our open house for that year. And we've had everything from church exhibits, veterans. We've done a salute to the 1950s and 60s, so different things like that. So you'll see different things in the hallways and when you come. We have a business and industry room that we do change every few years. Right now we have one on Bellefontaine restaurants in the 1950s and 60s. This is one that a lot of people of the age can reminisce about going to these different places. Places like Shively's Pizza, where it was kind of a hangout for the teenagers, different things like that. We've had future exhibits may include groceries, different things like that. So this is one. We try to do exhibits that when you can come back again and again and see some different things. The doctor's office shows what a doctor's office may look like. We have equipment from doctors that have served in Logan County, including an x-ray machine from Dr. Barrett. We have pictures of different doctors and some of their documents, different things like that. We have optometrist equipment, which is a little different than what we use today. Different things like that. So again, just kind of tells you what, shows you what a doctor's office may look like. One of people's favorite things is our fee bill from 1919. It shows the prices of what different things the cost back then, including how much it was for the doctor to come see you, come to your house, whether you lived here in the city or it was a little bit more if you lived out in the country. So different things like that. It's a good room to compare what we have today to what they used to have. I also have a number of different bags the doctors carried when they did go on house calls. The agriculture room is one of our newer rooms we did several years ago, but agriculture has always been, is today, and always will be very important to Logan County. We have equipment and tools that were used to help clear the land so they could farm. We have drainage tiles that help drain, especially the northern part of the county, which is kind of swampy, and with the drainage left great farmland that is still around today. We have old plows, planters, different things like that. We have stuff dealing with farm animals. We have milking machines, different things like that. But again, this room represents how important agriculture was for Logan County and how important it is today and will be in the future. We do have a toy room. This is a room that's, with a lot of stuff we have here, it's not just Logan County history, it's American history. We currently have a exhibit entitled Never Be Bored with Board Games, so it's all about the history of board games from stuff like Mancala or chess that are thousands of years old to newer things. And so it's a fun room. I think people of all ages can relate to it, from games that they played as a child or even still play as an adult. So this is a room that we do change every few years. And so again, it's just kind of a fun room to reminisce in. The communications room is a great room to compare different time periods. In here we have old phones that have no numbers on it, or you had to use an operator to complete a call, to rotary phones that many people don't even know what they are anymore, to early cell phones that look different than what cell phones we use today. We also have a variety of cameras, from the old cameras with on the base with where the photographer stuck his head underneath the cloth and had a big bulb that he had to hold on, a flash that he had to hold separate, to the box cameras of the early 1900s, Polaroid cameras, different things like that. Again, just it shows you kind of how photography has grown over the years. We also have radios. Radios were an important part of entertainment for families for many years, from the late 19-teens or early 1920s, up till today in a way. But from before TV came around, the radios where the family would gather around and to listen to their favorite shows. We do have various phonographs as well, and then TVs. We have an early TV where the screen is maybe 6 inches by 6 inches, with a whole lot of guts behind it to make it work. And you compare that today, where basically all you see on TV is the screen. We have combinations where they have TVs, radios, and phonographs all in one big piece. When TVs first, back in the 1950s and 60s, and even in the 70s, TVs are almost like a piece of furniture, and so they were pretty big. But again, they did play a important role in the entertainment of families. One thing we like to do, one of our volunteers, docents, showed me this idea. We give a tour, show all this, then we pull out our smartphones, and they do everything that all these different things do on their own. The one-room schoolroom represents what a one-room schoolroom may have looked like back in the day. Generally, one-room schools taught grades 1 through 8 with one teacher. Teacher would work with certain groups at a time on the different subjects. Just like today, they learned about math and spelling and reading, history, social science, different things like that. They just did it in a little different way. And a lot of times when the teacher is working with one group, the other students will be doing their homework, or maybe the older students will be helping the younger students. We do have a map that shows where all the different one-room schools used to be in Logan County. There are over 100 of them. There was a law that said you had to have a school within so many square miles, because the main way kids got to school back then was by walking, so they had to have time to walk to school and be in school, then be able to walk home. And so it's amazing how many one-room schools there were. We do have a one-room school in West Mansfield. That's part of the museum, the Flatwood School, which was built in Boakes Creek Township back right after the Civil War. It was built by a black settlement. It was used until the 1920s. And later on, it was used as a barn. In the 1990s, their family was going to tear it down. A local teacher, Chris Swisher, heard about it, and one of her classes at Bell Fountain Middle School took it on as a project, raised money, have it saved, and moved to West Mansfield. Then the Historical Society restored it, and we have it open for tours to show people, and mainly kids, what it was like to go to school in a one-room school. We have a timeline that leads into the Indian Room, talks about Indian history, but also puts it in context with different events in American and world history. But Indian history is one of our more important parts of Logan County history. It goes back thousands of years with the prehistoric people that were here, or pre-contact people, including like the paleo who hunted the big animals like mastodons. We actually have a tooth from a mastodon that was found near West Liberty, as well as a leg bone and a jawbone from another mastodon that's found in the area. We also have a number of different stone tools and weapons that have been found here in Logan County that were used by the prehistoric peoples, from the paleo to the archaic to the mound builders that called this place home, although the paleo and the archaic were hunters and gatherers, so they were more just kind of following the animals coming through this area, but they did leave a lot for us to see with the different stone tools. The mound builders came later. There are a few mounds in the area, especially Indian Lake area. But maybe more important are the historic Indians, historic American Indians that were here when the settlers first came, and the settlers started writing down what they saw. With the prehistoric or pre-contact, all we know about those people is what we found from the ground, like the tools. With the historic Indians, we also know what the white people that saw them, what they wrote down about them. And so this area was very important. We had a number of different Shawnee villages, Wyandotte, Delaware. We do have a map on the floor of Logan County that shows where the different villages are at, including Blue Jackets Town here in Bell Fountain. West Liberty had Malunthus Town, Wapakoneta, and Mackachak. Tarhees Town in Zanesfield. Chief Tarhees, the principal chief of the Wyandotte. And maybe most importantly is Wapatomica, which is kind of in between Blue Jackets Town, Tarhees Town, and Mackachak. Wapatomica was the capital of the Shawnee Nation for many years, and Shawnee held a number of different councils there, intertribal councils, trying to figure out what to do with all the whites coming on to their land. Should they just let the whites have the land and the Shawnee and Wyandotte keep moving north and west, or should they fight the whites, or should they try to live in peace with them? And over the time, they did all three. But the Indian history here is very important. Blue Jacket was a Shawnee war chief, helped lead the Northwest Indian Confederation to two of their biggest victories ever against Americans, then led them when they were defeated at Fallen Timbers in 1794, which led to the Indians having signed the Treaty of Greenville, which gave away about 2/3 of Ohio to the Americans. The Greenville Treaty Line ran straight through Logan County. Tecumseh, whose dream was to build an even larger Indian confederation, lived briefly in Mackachak, but more importantly, when in around 1806 he had a council, and we believe the first council he had when he was trying to organize his Indian Confederation. It was held at Old Town near DeGraff. Tecumseh was able to get a pretty large confederation. Unfortunately, his brother was defeated by William Henry Harrison at about Tippecanoe. And so Tecumseh's confederation, he lost a number of different members of that, so he had joined with the British during the War of 1812. And after initial success, Americans started winning the battles. Tecumseh was killed in 1813 at the Battle of the Thames in Canada, and after that, all Indian resistance in this area there was no more resistance, and so the Indians signed more treaties, including a treaty that put them on a reservation, the Lewistown Reservation, which is near the northwest. It was in the northwest part of the county. The southern half was for Shawnee, the northern half for the Seneca, and so some of the Shawnee lived on that reservation until to the early 1830s when they assigned another treaty that put them onto reservations out in Oklahoma and Kansas. In recent years, the Eastern Shawnee Tribe of Oklahoma, which are the descendants of the Lewistown Reservation Shawnee, came back to their homelands in 2 different places in Ohio, including Logan County and the different village sites and Wapatomica. And along with the Ohio History Connection, the Eastern Shawnee put a new monument at Wapatomica. And they also gifted to the Historical Society a basket, Shawnee basket that they made, and a ceremonial pipe was given to one of our members who helped with the Shawnee Eastern Shawnee when they came here, and his wife and then in turn donated this pipe to us. And so it's showing, and the Eastern Shawnee are still around, and they're relearning their culture, so we're proud of the relationship that we have with the Eastern Shawnee. The other rooms, we have a general store. It kind of shows what a store may look like. When in general stores where you go to buy things that you couldn't make at home. So whether it was material to make a dress or spices, maybe nails, different things like that. It was also tended to be a gathering place or social place for people. So we do have a checkerboard set up, so that was a place where farmers would come in and play checkers and talk to one another. Again, just kind of a gathering place as well as a store. Nearly every village would have a general store or two. They play an important part in the community. The military room shows what the different wars and how Logan County participated in those wars. Perhaps our most famous artifact we have is a tree trunk from the Battle of Shiloh during the Civil War. We believe a local veteran brought that back with him, but the stump still has a cannonball and some shrapnel in it. Something we've had in our collections for a number of years. But as you go through the room, you'll see different things from the different wars, from a sword from the Civil War to present day. We have a big exhibit on World War II, including the canteen that was here during World War II. The wives of the railroad workers created this canteen. Back then, soldiers, Navy, and sailors, as they were being transported from one place to another, rode trains. And the trains would come here to Bellefontaine to the roundhouse. They would stop and switch engines, switch trains here, and the soldiers would get off and would go through the canteen and were able to get a piece of cake or a piece of pie, cookies, a cup of coffee, cold milk, different things. That was all free to them. And the food was made by the workers at the canteen, volunteers at the canteen, and the food is provided by Logan Countyans. This is a time when there was rationing, and so it showed how the home front can really help with the war effort. But we also have stuff about veterans organizations, the Korean War, Vietnam, the Cold War, which was important here because of at Ohio High, or the highest point, there was a radar detection base from in the 1960s and 70s, or excuse me, from the 1950s and 60s. And so the Cold War, again, was even more important to us in this area because of the radar detection base. But we also have an exhibit on the most recent wars on terror, and we lost 3 local men in those wars. Jeremy Hodge was killed in Iran. He was from the Russellvania area. David Spicer from Zanesfield was killed in Afghanistan, and Dennis Hansen from Indian Lake was killed in Afghanistan. And so we have exhibit on those 3 men. Another rotating exhibit room we have is currently World War I room, although that will be changing. We've had women's history in here. We will be doing fraternal organizations and other organizations of Logan County. We plan on a Cold War exhibit down the road. So again, you'll come in here and come back in a few years, may see something different. We have an Indian Lake room that talks about the history of Indian Lake from the time it was basically a swampland to when it was first made into a lake as a reservoir for the canal system in the 1850s. And then after drainage and better roads and the railroad made Indian Lake, it became a resort area. There was a actually an amusement park there, had roller coaster, Ferris wheel, different things like that. Also had dance halls, and so the biggest names, the big bands in the 1930s through the 50s came and played at Indian Lake. It was nicknamed Ohio's $1 Million Playground. It was so popular. So when I give tours today, especially with kids, I say, imagine your favorite singer coming to your hometown and having a concert, and that's how it was every weekend at Indian Lake. Amusement park was there through the 1970s over the years with different management. It started declining. In the 1960s, every 4th of July, there were riots there. Started out with college kids from Dayton and Columbus coming and causing some disruption. Some years were worse than others. But also, once the big band music wasn't as popular, and again, the amusement park wasn't kept up as well as it could have been. It started becoming less, wasn't used as much. And then for a while, Indian Lake was down, but then they started cleaning up the water. The state park was even better with their campgrounds, different things like that. And today it's one of the more popular state parks in the state. It's still very popular with fishing and boating, and during the summer, nearly every weekend there's some event going on at the lake. So it's really recovered, and it's kind of back to its heyday in a little different way, but still a very popular place for people to vacation and go fishing and go swimming. We also have an Underground Railroad room. The Underground Railroad was a secret system that helped slaves escape back before the Civil War. It was illegal, and so there aren't many written records, so a lot of what we know about it is through oral history, passed down from family to family. The History Center is very fortunate to have some of the artifacts that we do have. We do have a bedroom suite that was actually used at a house. The house was actually up in Hardin County. We had a family called the Williams family, lived in Pickereltown. Pickereltown was kind of a hotbed for the Underground Railroad. It was mainly a Quaker settlement. The Quakers very much opposed to slavery. It's founded by the Pickerel family. Henry Pickerel had a large home there that is no longer standing, but he had secret rooms to help hide slaves in it. But the Williams family was another family that lived there, and Asa was active on the Underground Railroad, got his son Obadiah and Obadiah's wife Sarah involved with it. Obadiah was able to help a man named Meshach Moxley escape and bring his family with him. Moxley was a gunsmith, eventually settled here in Bellefontaine, Logan County. We actually have 2 of his rifles that he made for Obadiah. We also had this bedroom suite. Obadiah and Sarah actually moved from Pickereltown up to Mount Victory in Hardin County. And in their guest room, they had a bed and dresser, and that was where they let slaves sleep when they were escaping. And this one story is, we're not sure if it actually happened or not, was that they had a family of slaves with them, looked out the window, saw some men on horseback, knew they were slave hunters, so Obadiah went out to talk to the slave hunters as Sarah got the slaves out the back door. And then Obadiah offered to help the slave hunter find the slaves, and then took them in the wrong direction. So it was late when they got back to the house, so Obadiah and Sarah fed the slave hunters, and the slave hunters slept in the same bed the slaves slept in the night before. Again, we don't know if that's true or not, but it is part of the legend or oral history of the Underground Railroad. And then across from the Underground Railroad room, we have a ladder up on the wall, and the ladder is also part of the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad was usually not underground. It was called underground because of being secretive, but Logan County has a pretty extensive cave system with Ohio Caverns and Zane Caverns, but the northern half of the county used to have caves as well. Most of them have since been filled in, but on the Patterson homestead, kind of in between Huntsville and Northwood, there was a big cave, a kind of big hole in the ground, and this ladder went down into that cave, and escaping slaves used it to hide, to go down in the cave to hide. That's one of my personally favorite artifacts that we have here in the museum. We also have a household room. These are artifacts that you may find in a house anywhere from 1850 to 1950. We have things like butter churns, different type of butter churns, so when people made their own butter. Of course, today we just go and usually just buy it at the store. This is another great room to compare time periods from what we have today compared to what they used to have to use. We have a Hoosier cabinet that used to be very popular and still today is very popular as an antique. A lot of our visitors may remember their parents or grandparents having a similar cabinet. But we have cases in here that have different type of kitchen utensils. Again, some that we have today, back then they may have been made out of wood, now they're made out of plastic or something like that. So again, it's kind of neat to look at what was in there and then compare what we have today. Another thing we have is an early electric ice box. Up in the Orr Mansion, we have a wooden ice box that was cooled food by using actual ice. This one was electric, but it's called ice box because that's what people had always called their cooling appliances in the past. We now would call them refrigerators, but it is an early version of what a electric ice box or refrigerator would look like. We also have a nice exhibit on laundry. Today we have all fancy washing machines and dryers. Back then, first you had a tub and maybe a washboard, and you use lye soap, which is usually homemade. It's a very strong soap that did clean. It could also irritate your skin and eyes, but you would use that to clean your clothes and rub them against the washboard. Then we have one that's a little bit fancier, had an agitator in it that helped get the suds and help clean the clothes. And then we have the top of the line one where you put the clothes in and you would turn a handle which would turn the inside of the tub and help you wash clothes. Then you take it out and you go put it through the wringer to get some of the excess water out of the clothes before you'd hang them to dry. Again, washing is much easier now. We have different things on sewing, as well as spinning wheels, and talk about how you can go from flax or cotton and make it into thread and yarn and eventually into clothing. Another great thing that we have to compare time periods is our vacuum cleaner collection. We start out with not a vacuum cleaner, it's actually a rug beater. And so you take a rug out and hang it over a low branch or the railing on the porch and beat the dust out of the rug or whatever you're trying to clean. And then we have some vacuum cleaners here, that non-electric ones where you have a handle where you have to, one person will be pumping it to create suction, the other would be holding the rest of the vacuum to sweep up, or you have one couple that, or single person users, you'd have a plunger that would go up and down to create the suction. And then we have early electric vacuum cleaner. It may have been fun beating a rug to get the dirt out, but again, today's vacuum cleaners are much easier to use. So again, just a great room to compare time periods. Throughout the hallways, again, we do have different exhibits. One that we keep up fairly permanently is our GAR throne. The GAR was the Grand Army of the Republic, which was the veterans organization for the Civil War. Memorial Hall, which is on the southeast corner of the courthouse, or Courthouse Square, was built in honor of the Civil War veterans, and this is where the GAR throne came out of. We also have pictures of Civil War veterans, a picture of the soldier during the war, and then the same person about 30 years later. It's really neat looking at them, see if you can recognize them. So again, a lot of different types of exhibits here. We hope you come and visit us in person. You'll see a lot more, but it's tell us some of Logan County history, but also American history.